So as long as it's not confidential stuff, then I guess it's not.
No, it's not confidential. I was going to say that FNB is at the forefront of small business development. You understand? I think of all the banks, they have some of the best facilities for small businesses, because if you look at, they now have a product that they launched last year called Loan Call. Loan Call is a subscription service. If they base it on the basis of
just a hint, by the way, we've gone live, but you can continue talking. But I'm just connecting us to the other platforms in the meantime. But yeah, just continue, and then we'll dive into it. Yeah.
Okay. So they aggregate you according to your earnings. So if you're under 1 million, you pay, I think, about 400 and something rand, and you've got access. They cover you legally. So personally as a director, but also I think they cover you, your business, and then you can get contracts and whatnot drafted. If we had those kinds of facilities for small businesses on a broad spectrum, then we would have considered, insuring against acts of God, so to say, because the pandemic is an act of God. But that's the least of your worries, I think, as a small business.
It literally is the least of your worries. It's not a small business problem. And I like what you've said there, because those are some, big business problems right there. And we're literally thinking about, okay, how do I make the next rent for where my offices are? How do I, big business is literally thinking, okay, we just, we've got salaries for the next 2 years. We've got office space for the next 5 years. What we need to be focusing on is the other things. It's a different level of thinking, as opposed to, us. If, for example, you were explaining to me earlier about the border crisis, they have enough runway to keep them afloat, even if something as crazy as that happens. So that's the difference between small business and big business: cushion and no cushion. So I like what you said there.
Sure.
One more platform and we can pretty much start.
One line. Okay, no, it's cool.
People start coming on and stuff. All right, let's get Facebook. Okay. All right. Technology is pretty crazy. The fact that I can control 3 different platforms on my phone is just insane.
Yeah.
But
when you're live, okay, well, let's get into it.
You're live. If you look on your Twitter or on our Twitter and I think LinkedIn, Facebook, you'd be able to see that we are live now. Yeah.
Hectic.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty crazy. Okay. But awesome. I think we can kick this off. So everybody, welcome to the Likeminds Liveseries. Today I'm joined by Khanyisile Madonko, and we will be talking about how can you and what does it take to build a strong business. We'll be talking about a lot of things as far as small businesses go, big businesses go. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and join in on our conversation, because I think it would be, it'll make it even just a bit more, engaging and better and interactive, and maybe we can deal with some of the issues and problems you are currently dealing with. We usually deal with like marketing and PR stuff, but this time around, we'll be talking about the business side of things. And I think that would be a much needed conversation. And as most of you know, I'm your host, Matthew Rolls. And so I'll proceed to introduce Khanyisile. And got something for you here. So as you guys can see, Khanyisile Madonko is a serial entrepreneur. I'll just name some of the organizations he is currently sitting at the board of. He's an executive director at Likeminds Madonko Enterprises, managing partner at EcoSol Africa, which by my understanding is Economic Solutions Africa, executive director at Legal. What's that? Oh, okay. I'll just continue and then you'll correct me later. Executive Director at Legal ACC, founder at FE Ways VA, co-founder at Scribbles and Nibbles. Some of these awards include accolades. Awards and accolades include 5 promising Africans from Face to Face Africa, Forbes 30 under 30 class of 2019, 100 most influential Zimbabweans under 40, and Student Entrepreneur of the Year 2019 from the University of Witwatersrand. And like I said, the conversation today will be building a strong business. Awesome. I hope I done you some justice there, brother. And yeah, now you can correct me on anything that I may have messed up or butchered as far as your titling goes.
Sure. I think it's just legal accounting. So legal accounting is literally, legal accounting. So it's a specialist accounting firm for legal practitioners in South Africa.
Yeah, maybe just break down a little bit about what you do in these different companies, because it's interesting to get an entrepreneur who's literally doing, many other things and different types of businesses and the way you push it.
Sure. Okay. So with, I think Khanyisile Madonko Enterprises is my parent company. So it's where I hold predominantly, I don't own shares as an individual. All my shares are owned by my company. The juristic, I'm trying to take advantage of the juristic personality in the country, but also there are tax implications with me owning the shares as compared to a company owning the shares. So I try and always mitigate on that front, for profit's sake. So Khanyisile Madonko Enterprises houses all my entities apart from legal accounting. Legal accounting I founded with a business partner of mine, Ramanamane. He actually himself is a very well decorated entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. And so Khanyisile Madonko Enterprises is a broad company. We look at a vast number of things, but primarily my biggest thing has always been e-commerce. It's food and beverages. It's commodities. My older brother runs all our commodities transactions between Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, Namibia, Kenya. So my older brother is in charge of all of that. So we run it. I think that's our biggest unit in the company, in as much as it's a holding company. But my focus really, I don't even talk about those companies anymore because they sort of are able to run themselves. My core focus now is Economic Solutions Africa. If you look at, I think some of the companies that I've been with before I started my entrepreneurial journey in fashion, I was 14 years old. My first encounter with entrepreneurship was with these 2 guys that made some of the most phenomenal denim. I come from a township in Zimbabwe, in Bulawayo. And, being born of teachers, my parents' priorities was always, let me take my children to the best school. So fancy clothing and whatnot was a luxury. But when I met these guys, I was in boarding school and I was trying to get what we call influencing today. I was just trying to score myself a couple of pairs of shoes, And I said to them, guys, I go to a boarding school. I'm sure if you allow me to actually take a few of your jeans to school, and I was a rapper back in the day, so I was like, when I'm performing here and there, I'll be able to actually score you a few people who ask, where did you get those jeans? And it worked out. I worked with them from when I was 14 to about when I was 16. And with that fashion thing, when I moved to South Africa in 2014, I then worked under Ulinda Makhaya. He makes some of the greatest suits I've ever seen in my life, and so with that, when I left, I transitioned out of his business. I realized that my mind was in line with business development. I wasn't necessarily a fashionista or a stylist, or I wasn't interested in that. So I started other brands, like subsidiary brands. One of our first e-commerce stores under Khanyisile was gentlemanly.shop. It sold accessories. we had a reasonable following on Instagram because we sold them as boxes. So you'd have a set, whether it's a tie or a bow tie, you've got a clip, you've got a tie bar, you've got a silk pocket square, and you've got a pair of socks. That made us a bit of money, but still my mind was driven by how do I impact people's business? How do I create solutions beyond my own business? And I then got into looking at, we had something called Khanyisile Madonko Consulting. Khanyisile Madonko Consulting was initially a business development consultancy, but if you really ask someone who says their business is a business development company, ask them what they do, they won't be able to answer you.
Yeah,
that's my experience.
Tough one.
You understand? Eventually, as we were growing, I think 2015, 2016, we're actually celebrating our 5th year. We then transitioned into management consulting. But the pain that I had with the methodologies of management consulting are, if you look at the African ecosystem and the methodologies that are developed, your strategy, your operations, all those methodologies are Western methodologies. And so the influx generally globally of the businesses that exist, the small businesses, but an American small business or a small business in Dubai or in England and a small business in Africa are two separate things. The problems that these businesses face are totally separate, you understand? So when I was then at a point where I wanted to sort of develop comprehensive methodologies that suit the African infrastructure, I was lucky enough, one of the guys who was guiding me in consulting, because he had been a consultant for a while, he's one of the senior partners in EcoSol now. We transitioned Khanyisile Madonko Consulting into EcoSol Africa, which is Economic Solutions Africa. And we brought on partners because there's no way I'm going to develop all these methodologies myself. You understand? So we're looking at the greatest pain points of all these different businesses. So you find that with developing a business like that, you sort of can consult for your own businesses and grow your own other businesses, because the culture in the firm is everyone who works with us has their own business. It's a firm full of entrepreneurs. It's not a typical firm where if you work, it's not a 9 to 5. Yes, you're an analyst, or yes, you're a senior consultant, or you're an associate, but no one man can survive on one stream of income. And we try and foster that culture in the organization to say, look beyond. So there are things like you saw that FEWays. FEWays is efficient ways. That's what it means. It's because one of the greatest pain points that we realized when we started FEWays was business struggle with admin. A simple thing is I just closed the client, I need to send an invoice. I delay with the invoice, and then when I go there, sometimes the client has changed his mind. So what if you had someone who is not dedicated to you full time, but they can get all your admin done as fast as possible? So it was really the efficiency of focus on running your business, focus on closing and servicing the client, will handle the administration. So we started that, but it's predominantly a woman-run business. I'm not even involved. We're trying to create a structure where every employee is a shareholder in that particular business. So it has its own FEWA structure, all those things.
I mean, that's a pretty impressive culture that you run there, that everybody that works within your organization is entrepreneurial. You know, a lot of organizations have only started now to actually, being aligned with that kind of thinking or that kind of way of doing business, or just employing people unnecessarily. Usually if you're employed and you have a business on the side, you're either, not considered for the job or asked to close down your business. So nowadays you have to work yourself to a point where you can actually tell the employer or your potential employers that, look, this is what I do on the side. This keeps me going, but this is the amount of time I can dedicate onto doing whatever you're going to hire me for. But I can, I will also make time for my other stuff, just so this is a full package. And based on, your, maybe how well decorated you are as a, an entrepreneur or a professional, then you kind of get, that privilege. So it's still a work in progress, but it's good to know that other small businesses are also fostering the same culture, which is pretty dope.
Yeah.
Sure. I actually need to take some tips on that because, funny enough, it's something that we do, and
yeah.
you know what I mean? We kind of do it, but not in a way that it's like a culture and it's forced, but it's like a way that we don't mind anyone doing anything else. In fact, everybody that's in our team has either a business, another interest, or something, but found value in this specific vision of Likeminds, which is really just to enable access of quality learning experiences and education, right? Which is kind of what we're doing here. So while we're on that, on the topic of building a strong business, we want to talk about some of the ways in which you're currently doing business post-COVID, and what kind of tips can you relay to other people starting small businesses and how they can,
sure.
pretty much advance in this time in a more smooth fashion. Even though entrepreneurship is not smooth.
I think the pandemic sort of forced what was inevitable. You understand? Yeah. The 21st century organization, an organization that runs in 2020 is not like an organization that ran in 1995, where I record how many days you were at work, when you took lunch, what time you arrived, what time you left, and you have to apply for leave. So I when I left law school, I went to study HR, and I wanted to understand the real impact of human resource management and human resource development on employees. And the guy who was the lecturer there was, I think, the head of HR at ABSA. And he was saying that ABSA has become so flexible at the headquarters, like at the main head office. No one has a set desk. It's literally hot desking for everyone. And you have to get to work. Today, you might be sitting here. Tomorrow, you might be sitting over there, because they're trying to foster that culture. But I felt it didn't go as far enough as it's supposed to, because a organization today, in particular small businesses can be cash strapped. And by the way, when I say small businesses, let's talk about the real small business. Let's not talk about the startups and the micro businesses that.
Let's actually start with what classifies the difference, right? Between
the different business.
Yeah.
Oh, you're putting me on the spot now. I have to be academic. Let me see if I remember correctly. But if I don't, I think Likeminds can always offer the resources at a later stage. I can share some articles with you guys. But I think it aggregates on two bases. One, the number of people you employ. I think under 20. Well, if you employ under 20, but you also make under $1 million, you're considered a micro business. And then if you make $1 million to about 50, you're then considered a small business. But you also, I think, have to employ up to 50 or the 200. But I'll get you the right facts. And then your medium enterprises are then anything above that. So you're above the 50 million margin and whatnot. So 3/4 of the businesses that are not informal in the country are actually micro businesses. Okay. We're not at a stage where, because you find that they don't have employment capacity, and so they outsource 3/4 of the work. I don't have an internal graphic designer. I don't have an internal brand architect, etc. You understand? Those are micro, but those are the biggest influx, because those are still on the trajectory of either doing well or failing, because Bloomberg's report was small businesses in South Africa have an 18-month lifespan before they fail.
Damn, okay, it's gone down.
You understand? So
it was 5 years.
Those are the guys. Yeah, it was 5, then it was 3, Then 2017, Bloomberg then said that in South Africa, a business has a lifespan of 18 months before it fails, a small business. And we need to understand who the small businesses are, because Kaufman Foundation wrote about the extent to which small businesses, particularly in Africa, are contributing to the employment infrastructure. Because to be realistic, we only have a handful of corporates.
Yeah.
We only have a handful of corporates, but we have the youngest population globally. The 15 to 24 age group is the most sought after globally. That's why you're finding that these Western countries are now saying, come become a nurse, come become a doctor, come become an engineer, because they prioritized not overpopulating, not having children, to an extent that now their population is very old. But anyway, I digress. So, sorry, what was the question?
Remember, the question was, how are you doing business, and what tips can you relay based on your experiences from COVID to now? Yeah,
cool. So I've always been a big proponent for first things first, understand what business you're running. Everyone has an idea. I wake up with ideas on a daily basis. I have one particular intern who's very close to me in the firm, Kutwani. Visionary of note, has ideas day in, day out. And he's learned that when he comes to me with an idea, for me, use the business model canvas if you have to. It seasons your business idea. But what people don't tell you about the business model canvas is it also tells you if you actually have a sensible business. Not every idea can become a sensible business. By sensible, I mean a business that has an actual market, so there's a real consumer for it. You will generate income from it. Because as a consultancy, we work with companies that have been outperformed by technology. Take, for example, the rise of challenger banks. Time Bank, for example, is a challenger. It utilizes technology to actually become a bank. You understand? Their main infrastructure is the app, and it's those kiosks at Pick and Pay. If you look globally, there's the same infrastructure. So use the BMC, use it, but go so far as use the value proposition canvas. That's just an idea phase. You are looking at your business and you're trying to understand exactly what you're trying to do. It's all good and well when you go onto Twitter and you say, hi guys, please support my business. But for me, the phenomenon of support is the worst approach to doing business. Do you go to Pick and Pay and say, hi guys, I'm here to support you? You go to Pick and Pay because you find value in buying from Pick and Pay. You go to Woolworths because you find value in buying from them. You don't see them tweeting, hi guys, please support our business, hashtag support Black business. I am not a proponent for the theory of support. Let's change that notion, because it's predominantly a Black people thing. As a people, we're looking for support, but really we should be running our businesses on the basis of what is the value that I'm giving people.
Okay.
Because if you have value, you understand, if you have value that you're putting forward, it might be that you're servicing a problem. Uber, for example, what was the value of Uber? Initially, when they started, they were just a limousine company. And they were wealthy kids who didn't want to drive themselves from clubs to home and from home to the clubs. You understand? Because they know they're going to get drunk. So let's create a solution for other rich kids like ourselves. But then they realized that actually there's a bigger market for this. We just need to stagger it. Because if you look at Uber in the West, they have what is it called? The Chevy, the big black Chevy, the very popular Chevy movie, and the Cadillac. Those are available on Uber. And I was reading an article, I think last year, that talked about some guy picking up people with his Rolls Royce. There is a market for that stuff, but the buzzwords that come from all of that are You need to understand what it is that you're selling. Who are you selling it to? What purpose are you serving in the industry? In as much as we can say that I just want to sell books, why are you selling books? To who are you selling books? Who are the people in the industry? Why are they performing well in the industry? Is that an industry that is lucrative? And by lucrative, you look at how many people are in the infrastructure. Take, for example, energy drinks. Forget energy drinks, water. Anyone today, you can wake up and have Matthew R. water. But you now need to think, because I can have water. We ran Scribbles and Nibbles, our restaurant. We had our own branded water, still water. We had our own branded juice. What's different from yours? Is it just the brand value? Are you just saying that you as an individual are just selling water and it's the brand value that makes sense? And so people are just going to buy it for the sake of prestige. But if you really dissect the prestigious brands, there is something that they offer. So if you look at Forbes, there's a bigger, Norwegian water, I think, has something about it. You understand? So we need to invest in understanding that. That's just on the idea end. Then you also need to look at cost. The biggest killer of businesses, and especially startups and small businesses, is financial mismanagement. We poorly manage our money. We also, the minute I qualify for a credit facility with FNB or with Standard Bank or whatever bank, I want to go buy the nicest car. My accountant advises against it because the reality is I can't take business money and finance my lifestyle. I need to take money made by the business to scale the business. So I need to reinvest and look at how I can grow it. So in our firm, initially we had offices in Houghton, and we were working from an office where there's all these tables, there's everything. But we found ourselves working more out of the office and on-site with clients than we did in the office. And honestly, you have an intern who gets into work 6:30 in the morning. They're at work. They work through their projects. They try and meet their targets for the day. They do everything. By 12 o'clock, that person is done. What are they doing in the office for the rest of the day? They're probably talking to the other guys who are still trying to catch up with work. So we shifted our mindset from a business that sits, bums on seats, to a business that looks at productivity. If you can deliver, do that. Because it was inspired by an American company that said, if we give you a 4-day week, you can choose which day in the week you don't want to come. You don't have to apply for leave for it. You have a 4-day week, 3 days is your weekend, whatever you decide. The CEO reported back after 2 months that I'm getting 25% more output from the team than we did when they worked 5 days a week. So business, like small businesses in particular, should be utilizing those kinds of infrastructure to say, let's look at productivity. What are we doing as a team? Which clients are we servicing? When we finish servicing the clients, let's focus on growing our brand. But also let's focus on customer acquisition. Let's get more clients. But the biggest one is flexible working. There is no reason why people still have offices today. There is absolutely no need. Unless I don't know you, I don't know. But for me, an office is one of the most redundant investments that a business can make now. Reason being, you've got infrastructures like WeWork. You've got infrastructure, like WeWork is possibly the best model that South Africa actually had access to, because previously we had regions. But the downside with that particular brand was you only access the office from 8 to 5. Tell me of one entrepreneur who works 8 to 5. Like anywhere in the world. There's no entrepreneur that will say, I'm going to work at 8, I knock off at 5. You find that I'm working from 9, up until 12 midnight. And WeWork said, let's give you a hot desking facility for that. So our entire team, like our senior partners, all have WeWork cards. And the same bill we were paying for an office, like it's actually decreased our bill for an office, for office infrastructure. And the good thing is, we're now working with global clients. We've got London, we've got Dubai. When there's Dubai in the picture, I don't have to then think about, I need to go find a virtual office. Guess what? There's WeWork in Dubai. When we're in London, there's WeWork in London. You don't have to pay extra. You literally just book a day. If you need meeting rooms, you book the meeting room and you use the facility. So for me, I can't overstress one, understanding the market and your business idea and who you're trying to sell to, but also stop overspending. Don't spend on unnecessary things. No one cares for what car you drive. No one cares for what suit brand you wear. Really, really, in the bank, like if you have finances for you to grow, then you've achieved a lot of things.
Look, to some degree, I definitely do agree. A lot of businesses, as you said, mismanage funds, but there's also the question of businesses or small businesses rather, that use the funds to support their lifestyle, like to pay their rent, to live, basically. What do we have to say about guys like that?
You know, there are two kinds of people that start businesses, particularly I think with us Black people. There's a person who starts a business because maybe I was in university and I saw a solution to a problem that is affecting a lot of people, and I started a business on that basis. But there's also a Khanyisile from Culture Park, right? Who really, really, the opportunities that I have, it's either I decide to sit on the side of the road with the other guys and I ask for 2 rand from the guys who are seemingly doing better than all of us, you understand? Yeah. Or I try and make a living. There are structures, you know. I think South Africa is one of the most phenomenal countries when it comes to, they don't have it figured out, I won't lie. There's still a lot of work to be done. But when you travel Africa, you then realize that the infrastructure for entrepreneurial, like youth entrepreneurial development, is phenomenal. The guys who are starting businesses to pay rent, for example, he's probably exhausting all his funds to support his lifestyle. You have to sort of look at your lifestyle first, like do a lifestyle audit of your own, right? To say, because chances are, if you're starting a business to finance things, you're a one-man show. You're self-employed. It means that you're alone. So you're going to exhaust those funds. You can run for 3 months. You can run for 6 months. But at some point in time, you exhaust those funds and you're back to square one. If you can mitigate costs, for example, there was one guy that I was mentoring, and I said to him, the best thing you can do for yourself is don't rent an apartment. Go stay at home. Live in the back room. There's no need for you to look like you're this affluent person. No one needs to know that you're affluent or you're not. Let's build the business. Then once we build the business and we see that you're generating income, because the way I structure businesses is in a 3-form structure. That's on the basis of CIPC. CIPC, the Companies Act amendment, the amendment that happened a couple of years back, allowed businesses not to be tied to one industry. You understand? Now businesses are unlimited. You're allowed to do anything that you want to do. So I structure it on the basis of identify short-term business. Short-term business is usually unrelated with your core business. It's your bread and butter. Forget passion, do business. You're selling macaroni. There's someone who wants macaroni in 50 kg bags. They want 1,000 bags. Go find the macaroni, package it, give them a favorable rate. Those are the kinds of short-term things. It's not the core of your business, but what you'll realize is those end up becoming the fuel of your business. They keep injecting, no matter how small the cash is, you've got cash flow. Then you've got your medium term infrastructure. The medium term, you look at these, take longer to monetize, but not as long as your passion. Long term is your passion. These two now inject money into the passion. But by the time you get to the passion, at least that's my model. That's how I do things. By the time you get to the passion, you've got a proper support system. You've got proper cash flow. You've got proper understanding of different industries. And your business acumen is quite better. You manage funds better. You do things differently. The guy I'm telling you about, who was mentoring, was said, move back home, like go stay at home. His business model was, I want to go buy Millimil. I want to get a credit facility from this cash and carry, take Millimil on consignment, go and deliver it to all these small scale guys who cook pap and serve at lunch. Phenomenal business model, but there's a big risk. Some of these guys may not be able to pay you on time. So while you're trying to figure out the business model, go home. You don't have overhead. The only overhead you have is fuel. We'll figure out fuel together. It's fine. You have a truck already. Just go to the cash and carries. Take the Millimil. Go to your guys. You give them Millimil on Monday. Thursday afternoon, you're collecting your money. You've got a 30-day facility with a cash and carry that you're not paying up front. So every Thursday, you make sure that you're collecting money. By the end of the month, look at how much you've accumulated. Is it a sound business model? You understand? And then he scaled it. He got out of just that. He got into sugar. He was working with people from Swaziland to actually bring in sugar as well for restaurants, because it's more expensive for restaurants to go buy for your local brand, like your local branded. The minute it's branded, more expensive. But if I bring it to you, same quality, non-branded, 50 kg, I deliver it to you, it's cheaper. And now he's running his nice business where he knows that every 2 weeks I need to go to Swaziland. Of course, that's not the case because of COVID, but that's what he was doing. I need to go to Swaziland. I need to collect how many bags. There's cooking oil. I need to go collect, because cooking oil he's selling on consignment as well. I need to go collect in Mpumalanga, come to Joburg, deliver to my people. You understand? So he then got into that kind of infrastructure. So you need to understand your costs as an entrepreneur. And I think, especially if it's a business that you're starting to support your lifestyle. But it's problematic if the only reason why you start a business is to support your lifestyle. Because seldom those kinds of businesses succeed. You choke the business, you overburden the business with your own needs. You get me?
Yeah, definitely. Quick point. So the guy you're mentoring, does the story end well? Does he end up out of the back room? Does he end up going where he needs to be?
So, okay, he's in Rosenthal now. Nice studio apartment there. He's got 2 trucks of his own. When he came to me, he wanted to sell cars. I said to him, I see that dream, but do you think you can outsell Bruma Nissan? Do you think you can outsell Balo World? These guys have been in the industry for long. You want to sell cars? Raise the money, buy your first car, sell that first car. From the proceeds that you get from selling that car, try and buy 2 more, sell those 2. That is scale. If you come back to me and you say, I've sold 5 cars, philosophy, and this is a nugget, read to anyone. I live by this book, The Richest Man in Babylon. It teaches you how to, it says, treat your money as a slave. It should work for you. You understand? And so that's my approach. I said to him, if you come to me and you say you've sold 5 cars and here's the money, Then I can look for someone to match the money that you have. You buy 10 more, you sell. That for me is scaling. You're building a sound business. Then you can talk about, I want to pay myself this kind of salary. Okay, why are you paying yourself that salary? What are the tax implications of? Because remember that most of us don't think about SARS, but that is one of the most key aspects of running your business. It's a killer. And people don't understand that tax liability is a real thing. You pay, the minute you pay yourself above 3.6, you have to pay the tax man. You understand? You have to pay the tax man. So when you're an entrepreneur and you're talking to me and you say, I need to pay myself this much because these are my expenses. No, your expenses are not 7.5. What about the tax man? If you're paying yourself 7.5, go to tax 10. Use the tax calculator. Calculate how much you're supposed to pay yourself off that 7.5. Then you can give me a figure of how much you're actually supposed to earn as an individual. You understand? So yeah, there's just a whole lot of overburdening. I wouldn't encourage, if someone came to me and said, I want to start a business because I'm struggling at home, and I wouldn't encourage it. The minute you start a business on the basis of you supporting your lifestyle, it's not going to grow. You're wasting your time.
I mean, I guess a lot of points you've made. I think the one I want to tackle first is you mentioned businesses that start from not passion necessarily, but trying to fund your lifestyle, don't go anywhere. And I think that's what we call survivalist businesses or survival businesses, because they're hand to mouth, right? And they don't leave room for growth. And I believe in that manner that you do choke. Like the tuck shop model is literally a hand to mouth. I'm trying to sell some goods. I'm trying to pay my rent. I'm trying to take my kids to school, but I'm not trying to create anything bigger than this. This is what it is. Sure. And in that regard, I think we can agree on like if we can agree on the survival business model not being effective to someone who wants to have something much bigger. You know what I mean?
I think for
the last 20 years, I've seen tuck shops come and go, but not many tuck shops have come and stayed, or even if they stayed, they remained in the same place. And usually it was just like a house, but not many times do you hear, okay, there was a tuck shop that went from being a small tuck shop at someone's house where they were renting or where they owned, and then it ended up as a Pick n Pay. You know what I mean? Or a ShopRite or a Boxer. There aren't many of those stories. So in that regard, I truly can agree with you. I guess the heat here that you're receiving is, I'll read a few things out to you that was said. You might find this a little bit. So, go home. I think it was around the question of like going home, right? So go home, you won't have overheads, works if you come from a place of privilege. So then the question then comes, what if you don't come from a home that you can go back to? So how do you go home? So, okay, let's look at it this way, because I see this as a good challenging question. I come from Italy. Not Italy is a privileged place. I come from somewhere in Africa. I come to South Africa, and I can only support my lifestyle here. And I start this business so that I can kind of, build, capacity to fund my rent and all of those things. But I'm also at the same time trying to start a business or trying to grow this business. Then it becomes a thing of, okay, I can't go home and start my business there because it means traveling away from where the market is. So then that becomes a challenge in the way that I can run my business. You see? So what would your thinking be from that point?
Look, the go home, I think, applies to local guys. Yeah. The guys that are here. You understand? I'm not home, for being frank. Home in Zimbabwe, and you watch the news, you know what's going on in the country right now. You understand? When I say go home or stay at home, it literally means There's a gentleman I was talking to, I think about 4 weeks ago, and he said he does not subscribe to the notion of, and I hope Modibe will allow me to tell his story, but he said, no man is self-made, especially if you're a black man. And that for me hit home, because are we truly self-made? The approach, where his thought process around that stems from is, when he finished school, he started this coffee shop, and he had to say to his parents he has a home, but he was living with his friend. He was sleeping on the couch. You understand? Graduation came, and now the parents want to see his home, but he's still struggling. He's still trying to, get his coffee shop to grow. So he then has to say, there's someone who's busy there right now, so maybe you guys will come at a later stage. Then he says that on days when coffee wasn't bought, his friends were the ones buying the coffee. Just to show support, this is our friend's business, etc. There was no one else who was buying his coffee. You get me? So with that, in mind, with that kind of thought process, you then realize that as people, we need support, especially entrepreneurs. Guys, entrepreneurship is not just, it's such a buzzword. Everyone is an entrepreneur on LinkedIn. Entrepreneur extraordinaire. Hey, I run this business, I run that one. But there's a psychology end of entrepreneurship. There's the emotional end of entrepreneurship. The guys who make it out don't think that the stories they tell are just like a story. No, it's the 10,000 hours that they've done. One of my mentors will tell you that I didn't get this wealthy just because. There were times when I worked as a waiter. There were times when I had to stay at home and ask for help from my family. You understand? In as much as the biggest killer of entrepreneurship, I think anyway, in a black country, is our parents. Think of education as a means to an end. So we are educated, therefore you have to get a job. But the highest unemployment rate affects the unemployment rate affects highly the youth. And so it doesn't become a viable option to look for a job because more and more people are actually being laid off. So when we look at this vehicle of entrepreneurship, when I say to you, go home, stay at home, I literally mean that, because if you're supporting your lifestyle and you're starting a business to support your lifestyle, what's better, to spend 3,500 Rand on rent or to spend 500 Rand for groceries for the rest of the family? And then your traveling costs. You get a Metro card or you get a Rea Vaya card or wherever you are, whatever bus system or train system they use. Entrepreneurship is a humbling journey. And if you are not a humble individual, that is the psychology of it. That is the psychology of it. There is nothing. As an entrepreneur, you need to train your mind, unless you come from a privileged family or you come from a family that is affluent. But for the rest of us, you need to be realistic. You're not going to, what you see in these videos on YouTube, you're not going to buy a car tomorrow. You're possibly not going to buy a car for 10 years because you're still trying to build this business. So when I suggest that go home, it's literally, don't just think of it as go home. Think of it as where you can cut costs. If you can get office space for free, go for that. If you can you're going to a meeting and you get a suit for free, go for the free stuff. If you can eat every day for free, go for that. I was laughing with a friend and I was saying that, in banking infrastructure, for us, it's prestigious to carry a black card, but For a wealthy individual, it's about the benefits. I pay less because I'm wealthy. You understand? For us, I'm choking myself paying 600 Rand every month for a black card. Do I have any use for the benefits? No, I'm not at that stage. I'm not flying every day. I'm not, I probably don't even know what Diners Club is. But here we are trying to use those facilities. You understand? So understand your level, humble yourself, live way below your means, like way below your means. That's what I'm trying to express when I say stay at home. I wish my parents lived in this country. I would not even look for an apartment. I'm not going to lie to you. I would stay in their house, at least until I was 28. I would stay in their house because the money I spend on rent, the money I spend on all these other things, I wouldn't need to spend. I'd actually pay for the things that are needed at home. It will not equate to the rent that I pay. You understand? So think of it as humble yourself. Look at your expenses realistically. If you can cut them down, cut them down. And even the cut down one, cut them down further if you can.
So yeah, I think your big tip, if I have to just cut it down through the middle, is mitigate your costs, keep everything to a minimum as possible as you can. Try and keep everything to a sizable cost so that you can have room for growth. Because I guess with a lot of business owners or entrepreneurs, it's about the buzz, right? And I guess it's being involved in a entrepreneurship culture. Like, it's very hard for people in the entertainment space, because part of the success of entertainers or creative entrepreneurs in entertainment is to have a fancy car, have a fancy office, and that's kind of what shows, okay, cool, Khanyisile is making cash, or Matt is actually affluent, so let's use him because, you know, he's got the best stuff, you know. And maybe the thinking is changing a bit now, but there are industries that survive where you survive and thrive because of faking the funk, right? Having the office, having the space, doing that. But the culture is slowly dying, and people are starting to downsize. Even big companies, as you spoke about, are starting to downsize all the way down so that they can, you know what I mean, get the most out of it, get the most out of their businesses and get the most growth out of their businesses. So that's definitely a good point. I want to end on 2 points. One thing I really wanted to ask, I don't know if we have time for it, the conversation of who pulled the plug, right? And maybe we should have started with this one. Who pulled the plug on the legs of big businesses, right? Not just big businesses, also prominent businesses that we thought were going to be something or were going to stay around for some time. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I think it's happened to every industry. A lot of businesses that we thought would be there for some time, lights have been switched off, doors have been closed. Now, the question here is, in your perspective, do you think COVID-19, the pandemic, is the cause of this, or was it flawed business models and systems to begin with?
It's definitely not COVID. I mean, COVID, it impacts a lot of things, but the businesses that survived are businesses that have planned for it without planning for it. They didn't think about it. You know, why did Kodak fail? They failed to innovate, and someone came and disrupted the industry. Why did Nokia, BlackBerry fail? They failed to innovate, and someone came and disrupted the industry. No one wanted the minute the iPhone was out, no one wanted a phone with buttons. Samsung, on the other hand, adopted. But when they adopted, they developed their model into segments because they understood that Apple has two primary markets, one primary market. They know they have an aspirant market who can spend on the iPhone SE, but the actual person who affords their product wants the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So all these other products are on the side. So I think you can factor it into, and it's funny you asked this because I was actually reading an article about the consulting industry. The McKinsey, the Bain, Boston Consulting Group. They're the founders of management consulting as we know it today. You understand? The strategy as we know it, the matrices that management consultants use. But the article I was reading was talking about how they too, it's an early industry, it's still fresh. 1963 was the booming, from 1963 was when management consulting became a booming industry. But we shouldn't be naive to think that it can't be disrupted. And it is being disrupted by the guys, the boutiques, who then identify a niche. And when you identify a niche, you become a specialist in that niche. So I stopped going to the firm that offers a broad spectrum of services. And if I need strategy, I go to a strategy specific firm. You understand? So the largest contributing factor for me is disruption. The solutions that are being developed, and technology is not making it any easy. Microsoft Teams did not know that there was this thing called Zoom that would practically make conferencing, partying, you name it, like artist virtual performances become a thing. You understand? You and me are talking today, we're probably worlds apart, but here we are having a conversation seamlessly. So I think it's the corporates that failed, were bound to fail with or without COVID. It was only a matter of time because it simply means your R&D, your research and development is not extensive. You're not disrupting, you're not innovating in the industry. And a disruptor comes, it changes the way things are done.
For sure. I think I have nothing further on that. I have two more points. The one point I think we spoke about earlier and breaking it down, which was if you have any tips that you have for someone who's trying to build a strong business, what would your tips be?
Okay, first things first, prepare yourself. It is not a walk in the park. Don't think that you'll start it's possibly the hardest thing. Sometimes I feel like going to get a 9 to 5, but unfortunately, this thing is just within me. The other thing is understand your business model. That I can't emphasize enough. Look at what product you're selling, who you're trying to sell it to, why you're trying to sell it. Because those three things, not even those three things, but use the business model canvas. I can't emphasize that enough because you're able to understand what it is. Like we were in school, so I'm doing my EMBA now with House, and there's this course, Disruptive Business Models, where you talk about what the business model generation, meaning it's not like back in the day where if you wanted to sell corn, you just go to the streets and start selling corn. Strategy back in the day was perceived as something for armies, police officers. Today's strategy is key for any level business, be it micro, be it a startup, be it a large corporate. So understand your business model because from that stems your strategy. You'll be able to develop sound approaches to how you want to build your business. Because I can tell you for free, many micro businesses don't have a strategy. Simply setting goals and like tactical goals and having objectives to reach those goals. Many of them don't. So as a startup, you need from the onset know what your vision is. I would like to be a challenger commercial plane company. How do I do that? I need to create a solution where people, that's your mission now, where people can access flights at a cheaper rate. Okay, but there's already flight fare, there's already this, there's already that, and then that helps you think and get down to the nitty-gritties of what is unique about your business. And investors ask this and people think it's a stupid question that they ask. No, it's because that uniqueness will either guarantee if I'll make my money back or if I won't.
Yeah, definitely. Also wanted to ask, say, if you could turn back time, right? Pre-COVID, knowing what you do now, what would you do differently?
I would have closed the offices first and first. I would have closed the offices 2 years ago already. It has saved our firm money. It has saved our firm time. It has saved our people their stress, the stress of transport in the morning, the stress. I would have changed that. Firstly, how we work completely. Funny how I said how we work because we work, but yeah, you understand. I would have completely changed that infrastructure. That's the first thing. But also the flexibility end of the business. You understand? I would have looked at how do we plan for an act of God, because no one, well, maybe people had ideas for it. We didn't. But we had all other kinds of mechanisms in place to protect us from whatever else, just not a pandemic. So I think we would rethink how we save, how we budget, how we invest, because if you had invested in the stock market, chances are your stocks took a hit. You understand? So that wasn't a viable pullout. In fact, you were supposed to be buying more during the pandemic. So yeah, you out of rethought how we invest to mitigate against unforeseen, because you never think about the unforeseen stuff until it happens. But now I know better. I need to actually think about what if the black whatever flu from Spain happens to Africa? What happens then? What will the guys in the team eat? Because that's the main task you get as a managing partner. Everyone else is on the grind, but I also have to think about our team, everyone who is in the firm. What are they going to eat if something like this happens again?
Yeah, that's a good answer. And that's all the time we have for today. And it's been a very fruitful conversation on my end. I've been able to learn a few things from you as far as establishing a strong business and just business in general, and how dirty it can get and how you can get clean, and yeah, stuff around that. So Khanyisile, like I said in the beginning, very thankful that you came and you
Thank you,
accepted our invitation onto the platform. And yeah, hopefully we can engage further in the future as well. But for this topic, we are at its end. I just wanted to find out from you, where can people find you as far as your socials and stuff?
Yeah, so at Khanyisile Madonko, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and then the best place to go really if you need to read articles or anything is my website, khanyisilemadonko.com.
Okay, we'll put that in the description for those who will be revisiting the conversation later. For that matter of fact, yes, the conversation will stay live and you'll be able to revisit some of these points again if you need to note some of the things, or just rewatch it to see some of the points that we had made, whether you could stay on for the conversation or you had to go somewhere, whatever the case was. But we are at the end. I'm your host, Matthew Rose, and thank you for supporting, watching, and being here for another episode of the Likeminds Liveseries of Season 2. We will be back next week with additional exciting topics and entrepreneurs like Khanyisile himself. And once again, just want to say thank you, Khanyisile, and we'll meet on the other side. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, my brother.